Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to this second series of webinars hosted by the Great Indoors. My name is Rob Kracht. I'm based in Holland and I'm CSR Communication Manager at Tarkett. And actually I am replacing Marjolein Verleg, who's enjoying her holiday. And Marjolein Verleg basically manages the Great Indoors. And the greatindoors.eu is an online platform. Excuse me, it's an online platform powered by Tarkett to inform and inspire the ever-evolving work-life conversation, and it helps to create healthy, flourishing workspaces. In the wake of COVID-19, Tarkett is hosting a new webinar series called Rethinking Workplace, and here extensive research into the wants and needs of office workers across the globe, both pre- and post-pandemic, is brought together. Next to our own findings, the Rethinking Workplace webinar series will also present insight from key industry experts around the world. And today we bring you FranklinTill, co-founder of London-based future research agency FranklinTill, to present Storeys Journal, the work-life issue, and explore the future of work. She will take us into the latest research insights and soundbites from a recent focus group we hosted with international architects and designers. And the webinar will explore medium and long-term workplace design trends in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. So now over to you in London, Caroline. And as we now say, the camera is yours.
Thank you so much, Rob. Yeah, hi, lovely. Well, thank you for joining me this afternoon, everybody. I can't see you, unfortunately, but I'm going to now just share my screen and start to talk you through some slides. So bear with me while I hopefully get to my slides. Okay. Into full screen. Okay. Okay, so hopefully everybody should be able to see the presentation now. Please just write a note in the chat if you have any problems, and just notify me, myself or Rob, if there is at any point you have any problems with any of the audio or the visuals. So my name's Caroline Till. I'm the co-founder of FranklinTill. We are, as Rob said, a futures research consultancy based here in London. We have been working with Tarkett for nearly 2 years now, and really sort of sharing our passion and emphasis on forward-looking research, particularly with a focus around environmentally focused, environmentally conscious innovation. We're always looking at what's new and next in terms of consumer insight, design and material innovation, with an emphasis on designing for a sustainable future. And we really came together to create an open dialogue around ideas and insights, exploring current case study examples of some exciting design innovation within the workplace environment. So today I'm going to talk you through the first edition of Storeys, the work-life issue. And this is really based on Tarkett's research from the Great Indoors Index as a starting point, and building on this data to further explore the context of the findings, looking at where shifts are happening in terms of behavioural insights around our working environments, but particularly how this is manifesting into new design opportunities. So in the magazine, we aim to celebrate the work of innovative designers, architects, and companies that are responding to changing needs in beautiful and creative ways. So the magazine was initially released at the end of last year. So much of the research was conducted pre-COVID. However, we have started to review the research, and interestingly what we have found that indeed the main themes that we were exploring, the COVID-19 pandemic has only amplified and actually expedited the relevance of the main trends that we've been exploring. So I wanted to talk you through the research, but also to discuss some of the updates that we've been finding in this incredible range of panel discussions that we've been having, and focus group sessions in which we've really been having very open conversation with a range of architects and designers. to help sort of share information about, you know, what is this new normal? What does it mean in terms of the way that we are working, and importantly in terms of the, you know, emerging behavioural insights? What does that mean for the spaces in which we're working? What does it mean? How will the environments need to perform? What activities will we be doing in this sense of new normal in the workplace? And indeed right down to what will the materials and colours look and feel like, and what will the furniture need to perform in terms of function. So while the pandemic has been hugely disruptive to businesses and economies around the world, enforced remote working has prompted this mass reconsideration of how we work. And this, I think that, you know, the shift from suddenly having to open up flexibility in particularly the location that we work has been the major disruption. So we gathered statistics just to explore the difference to pre and post COVID working behaviours. So here in the UK, before the coronavirus pandemic, there was only about 5% of the country's workforce that were working from home. And in the last 3 months, that number has hugely risen, obviously, to around 49.2%, according to the UK Office for Statistics. And in the US, for example, it's a very similar picture. So 97% of the workforce that are able to do so are currently working from home. And interesting, 3/4 of US CFOs believe that 5% of their workforce will become permanent work from home employees after the pandemic ends. Obviously, there are shifts happening now, but every country's response is still relatively different. So this was based on a survey that US research firm Gartner recently conducted. So I suppose this leads us to ask the death of the centralised office, you know, this suddenly floodgate of flexibility, and the fact that we have found that we can still be productive from home. You know, does this mean that the death of the workplace? So what I wanted to talk you through now was 5 key points that have been pulled together from Tarkett's incredible bespoke research called Rethinking Workplace that Rob alluded to. So this is a research initiative which includes, among other activities, a series of 3 major omnibus surveys carried out by workplace research firm Workspace on Tarkett's behalf. One has already happened in June of this year, one will be happening in September, and one will be happening in November. And the survey is tracking changes in attitudes, preferences and concerns for office workers in 14 different countries. And we have the first set of analysis back, and this is based around 5 countries out of the 14, so including the Netherlands, the UK, USA, China and Australia. And the 5 key points I wanted to talk you through today were, firstly, overwhelmingly, people came back saying the office is essential. So respondents across the markets believe that they are most productive in the office environment, away from the home. And this trend was significantly stronger in this omnibus compared to the original research, which was conducted pre-COVID. So a huge majority of people agreed with that they were most productive out of the home in an office environment. And the lowest amount was in the UK, which was 83% of people feeling that the office was essential, to China, where 92% of those polled agreed that the office was essential. So one of the key factors that people cited was that they felt collaboration and face-to-face teamwork was key. So the results suggest that the respondents have really missed working together face-to-face, and they want a workspace in which they can collaborate together. And that obviously may be what's behind their belief that they're most productive in the office space, where it's easy to come together to, you know, brainstorm ideas, solve challenges and ask questions. The third idea was that flexibility was still the prevailing theme. people have had a taste for flexibility, and they're looking for this flexible working arrangements to continue, which allow them to seamlessly move between work and life. They are also looking for flexible spaces and working environments to suit their changing needs. So flexible hours and more flexibility was one of the most the highest answers in terms of the most attractive perks from a job. One of the most interesting insights, which very much differed to the research that we were doing pre-COVID, was that people felt, in terms of aesthetics, in terms of how the surroundings of their work environment looked and felt, they wanted the office to be different from home. We had been conducting a whole series of design-focused research that found that increasingly work environments were shifting more towards a homely feel. They were sort of having a more eclectic feel, and particularly soft furnishings were more like a sort of home interior than a workplace. However, this June omnibus really overwhelmingly found that in terms of the type of office environment the respondents prefer, reflecting the culture of the business or a more corporate look, had made great gains compared to our last research, while aesthetics like sort of Scandinavian modern interiors lost ground. So this sort of more traditionally corporate look and feel was interestingly what people were really kind of responding to, and I think that's something that we'll continue to track as we carry on with this research and carry on discussions with architecture and design professionals. And particularly there were some interesting insights around sort of bright themed, more playful environments, such as you find at Google or Lego, for example. There was a high number of workers preferring that type of environment, feeling that this sense of sort of playfulness, but also importantly this differentiation from the home environment was really attractive. Finally, the fifth key insight that emerged overwhelmingly from all 5 countries was that indoor air quality and environmental impact emerging as key concerns. So not offices and work interior environments not being environmentally friendly was one of the greatest concerns in the Netherlands, for example, and also had a 25% increase in statement of concern in the USA. So also interestingly, one of the key concerns in the pre-COVID research that was conducted was noise and noise pollution. However, that was really hardly prevalent in the responses this time round. So those 5 kind of key insights are going to shape what I'm going to present to you this afternoon. And that really feeds back into the 3 distinct themes that we had and the distinct behavioural trends that we were exploring within Storeys magazine. And these are exploring the convivial workspace. So the importance of the office as a space to foster community, a space to enable connection, and particularly in the face-to-face physical sense. Obviously, in the immediate future, we're still looking at restriction in terms of contact being in place. But as things begin to loosen up, many of the sort of trends that we're exploring here are looking more towards the medium and the long term, while the coronavirus still has a legacy, but the most immediate spatial restrictions have been somewhat lifted. So the second theme I'm going to talk to you today about is the fluid workspace. So as we discovered in those 5 key insights, flexibility being of extreme importance to the worker, but also needed in terms of our changing external and internal environments. And then finally, the idea of the nourishing workspace. So how our working environment can actually positively contribute to our physical and mental health and well-being. So firstly, the convivial workspace. So this is really asking, how can our working environments enable a sense of culture and community through the considered collision of people and ideas? So Gensler found that 43% of employees think that workplace culture has been negatively impacted by remote working during lockdown, and that comes as no surprise. So we're scoping some really exciting examples of workplace design that really enable this sense of collision, of people coming together, but particularly embracing elements of serendipity. So even at some points chaos, so creating workplaces that physically enable people and ideas to collide and interact in different ways. And indeed, some of the insights that we found from the architect and designers' open discussions, the focus groups that we held, was, we were exploring the type of activity that you might be doing in the workplace versus if we move to this hybridized model where people are working at times from home but then coming together at times from the office space. How does that impact the function, and the activities? Will we indeed move to be much more task-based rather than time-based? So we have the flexibility to decide, when we want to work from home and when we want to work from the office. So we've been looking at sort of really dynamic, agile, multi-use spaces that draw on a sense of openness and transparency. So departments and disciplines can easily connect, and people can see in, and indeed other people can, people can see out, and indeed other people can see in. So this is one such example. This is the Vitso headquarters here in the UK in Royal Leamington Spa. And it's obviously designed to reflect the principles of Dieter Rams. So it's a multifunctional space that's bringing together manufacturing areas, office workers and social spaces in one building. So it's very flexible and reconfigurable in terms of functionality. So different teams are working alongside each other, and huge windows invite staff to look out and indeed visitors to look in. So this is really about trying to break down silos within the workplace. So not only fostering collaboration, but also the sense of being part of a team. So we're looking at variable spaces that provide users with 2, 3, or even 4 spaces in one. And again, really thinking that idea, actually, if we are coming together in the office environment less often, what will the task or the activities be? How can the office space provide resources? Whether it be physical libraries or notice boards. I don't know about you, but I'm so used to mapping things on a wall in an office environment. I find myself continually looking up in my attic bedroom where I'm hiding away from my children to work. I keep looking up at a bare wall expecting to see a project mapped out. So how can we really enable that sense of physicality to reinvigorate resources and research and inspiration to teams? This is an interesting example of sort of enabled collision, I suppose. This was Pernod Ricard's, it's their breakthrough innovative group in Paris, in their headquarters. And this space has 3 distinct functions. It's a think tank for creativity and a do tank to sort of explore new innovation platforms, but then also provides a theatre space, a kitchen space, and a tasting area. And the idea is that the main atrium that's on the screen now is built from mobile stackable units that the architect actually called MUFU, or mutant furniture, that allows the space to be tailored to the client's sort of multitude of needs. So this is about being agile and providing various functions to spaces that enable this sense of adaptation. So while we will need the opportunity to come together and have ideas collide, if indeed we're working together less often, we also are going to require that sense of privacy and contemplation and focus. And one example of a workspace that has really successfully incorporated both of those elements of collaborative coming together working, but also individual focus, focus, is Space 10's office. So Space 10 are IKEA's innovation arm based in Copenhagen. And their workspace has been recently designed by Spacon and X, and it combines working facilities, a fabrication lab and a tech studio, but also plays hosts to exhibitions and events. So it's a really sort of flexible, reconfigurable space that allows also for quiet, focused work. And obviously at this point of time, when we're starting to go back into the workspace environment and there are restrictions on how near we can get to each other or how much contact we can have, the ability to be able to have that flexibility, you know, at the moment to be working from distance, to then gradually come back closer together, is really enabled through this reconfigurable sort of functionality of furniture. So Kevin Curran, the program lead at Space 10, said the physical workspace fosters personal relationships, cross-pollination and a sense of community, all of which are crucial for boosting happiness, creativity and well-being. The next idea within this notion of sort of enabled collision, within this notion of the convivial workspace, is the office as platform. So this is actually thinking again about the notion of the sort of multifunctional space, but also the need for companies, whether large or small, to enable and nurture their networks and communities through their workspaces. So this is how they can kind of open up to their network and bring in their community. So bringing outside community into shared spaces, whether that be through cafe, gallery or retail, allowing integration and assimilation between employees, visitors and local community. So it's quite an interesting approach to sort of putting the culture of the company at the core of the space rather than as an add-on. So again, so this is an example actually in Sheffield in the UK, designed by Teetum and Teetum. And it's really designed, it's an office space, but also functions as a gallery space, which again is interesting in these quite difficult times economically, because you can look at sort of multiple income streams and the potential to hire out space as well. So a comprehensive, culturally centred design can encompass so many elements that staff will hardly need to leave the office, whatever the project. So, you know, much of the research that the Rethinking Workplace Omnibus has been uncovering is that employees really want a sense of culture and community at the centre of their workplace. So, you know, really bringing that into the workspace environment can foster that sense of not only network, but also really sort of nurture even learning experiences for the teams. So we've also found some interesting examples of when the workspace design enables sharing of facilities and equipment that's not only benefiting individual companies, but also enabling hands-on making to keep alive. So this is about the office's platform also offering spaces for sort of more hands-on making. So we're looking at sort of incorporation of open workshops, might be fab labs or maker spaces, and this is a trend that has been on the rise. And again, the opportunity for companies to mutually share whether it be space or particular equipment or machinery, again having an economic imperative, but also being sort of mutually beneficial and fostering a sense of community both within and outside of the work environment. So just to conclude, the convivial workspace is you know, about designing an open environment that allows people to move, act and share freely. So encouraging encounters and interaction. So the examples that we uncovered really were very dynamic spaces that blended cultural activities into the workplace in open and accessible ways. And this is very much about bringing people together both for working moments, but for social moments, to share ideas. And that obviously in the post-pandemic workplace being more important than ever. Indeed, if we continue to visit the workspace less often, how can we, use the workplace design to encourage and maintain that sense of company culture and company morale? So the spaces being more than offices, but actually hubs for experimentation, community, and collaboration. So next up, the fluid workspace. So this is very much entrenched in this heightened requirement and desire for flexibility. So looking at adapting seamlessly to increasingly diverse and changing needs. So workplace consultancy found that 88% of people that were asked wanted to maintain a work-life balance that they'd started to get a taste of in this post-COVID era. And 87% of people would like much more control over the hours they worked. So this is a quote from Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand. So she says there's so much we've learned through COVID about the flexibility of people working from home, the productivity that can be driven out of that. So how can we, again, bring people together in the workplace environment? How can they be designed to better cater for more flexible and fluid workforces? So firstly, hackable spaces. So this is about designing needs to be malleable, reconfigurable, movable, and shape-shifting. And again, as we go through this period of adaptation and getting back into the work environment, where probably from a mental health perspective, people are nervous. There's an uncertainty. And also offices are having to adapt quite quickly to changing legislation and guidance. So the ability to be able to reconfigure spaces initially to enable more space between us, to then be able to bring things closer and back together is hugely important. So this was a nice quote from Helen Beresford, the head of interior design division of Shepherd Robinson. And she said, our offices more than ever will need careful stewardship to make sure they can flex and create balance between open and closed, intimate and collective, keeping change with the outside world. So the ability to suddenly, expand and enable very intimate working spaces, for whether that's for focus or for distancing concerns, but then to come back together for collective working. So this was an example that we quite enjoyed. It's the Toy Factory offices in Tokyo, which are designed to incorporate these movable partitions organised around a central core. So these kind of archive style inspired units run along one side of the office that are ready to be reconfigured, whether that's for an ad hoc meeting or focused working. So it's really about the design putting the control into the hands of the user. And really no one knows better how a space needs to be used or needs to adapt than the user of that space. So there can be really interesting collaborative contracts between the designer and the end user. And indeed, it feels like going into this era of change and adapting to this sense of new normal and new working patterns. More communication, particularly between HR and workforces and management and workforces, and the design of the space needs to happen than ever before. So we've been looking at some furniture that enables agility with customizable designs. So this is an example. This is the Danish Design Centre in Copenhagen, also designed by Spacon and X, but it's utilising Open Desk furniture. So Open Desk are a completely digital furniture company. They exist as an online platform. You purchase a digital file, and on purchasing, they connect you to a local maker. So your furniture is usually made within a 10-mile radius of your location. So it's this idea of kind of distributed manufacture, and being, while you're globally connected, you're very locally productive. And that's really interesting. One of the ideas that has been talked about within our focus groups is the distributed office. So the idea that instead of having sort of major HQ sites, because, you know, now we can and are working more from home and coming into the office perhaps less often, there might be the need for more localized hubs, so smaller working spaces that are positioned in sort of more local to workforces. So, you know, what does that mean for the look and feel of these spaces? Are we looking at uniformity or going to celebrate localized differences? So the personalization of space demands an unprecedented level of design flexibility that can accommodate everything from focus space or a private meeting to a creative brainstorm or lecture. So we're finding that the much maligned cubicle is finding a new lease of life, offering that sense of quiet focus and also offering a sense of distance protection in these times. But it really is being re-envisaged as a softer, more adaptable, more attractive solution. So this is Buzzy Brax by Ellen Gillies for Buzzy Space. And it's a modular system that can be adapted and layered with various curtain colours and heights to create different levels of acoustic and visual privacy. Lastly, looking at this notion of the fluid workplace, we've been exploring the trend for workplaces, particularly co-working spaces, to become much more family friendly. We're all acknowledging that we've been balancing workloads with simultaneously looking after families, and this sense of the collision of work life and home life has never been more apparent. So there's pre-COVID, there was already these exciting spaces that were starting to pop up that were helping to explore how design can help working spaces become more family orientated, not just by easing stress on parents, but also supporting the retention of particularly female staff. So this is an example. This is Second Home, a co-working space in London, and they've actually incorporated a nursery as part of their offering. So really kind of blurring that divide between parent time and work time, and acknowledging this sense that we might be working on this more task-based sort of schedule rather than, you know, a 9 to 5 working. Another example is Little Wing, again in a co-working space in New York. And Little Wing is actually a female-led and female-only workspace. And they're really taking the lead on designing childcare into office spaces. So rather than this being an add-on, the design of the workplace childcare is, you know, we're finding is showing the same thoughtful consideration for materials and details as the spaces that adults use. It'll be interesting to see if we see this trend continuing in kind of as we move out of COVID-19. So in conclusion, the fluid workplace, so it's, you know, really about offering fluidity, offering family and parent-friendly facilities, and also exploring the office reimagined as a gallery, as a restaurant, as a wellness space. So rather than this sort of one-size-fits-all approach, the ability to reconfigure spaces and really consider the individual and highly diverse needs of the workforce and how you can place that at the centre of the design of the workspace. Finally, the Nourishing Workspace. So this is about nurturing mind, body and spirit to promote holistic health and happiness, and how we can do that through considered design of our working environments. So this is a quote from Michelle Agundahan, the former editor-in-chief of Elle Decoration. So indoor air can be up to 10 times more contaminated than outdoors due to the buildup of pollutants. And obviously, you know, we know that we spend close to 90% of our time indoors, and our concern for health and hygiene has probably never been more acute in these times. So the outdoor in, this was a trend again that was on the rise pre-COVID in terms of workplace design. So the emotional, physiological benefits of the outdoors are enormous. They're well known, and architects and designers are continuing to try and build connection with nature in the workplace. So, you know, how we've been thinking about how we can bring the outside in. But interestingly, are we going to see also the inside move outwards? Will, obviously, for example, my child has, when she's been back at school in reception, the majority of their learning has been done outside, because right now, obviously, it's safer. And that's quite interesting. Will we see a requirement of office sites to have some outdoor space, and not just for social aspects or for, you know, chill out time, but actually the ability to be able to sort of fluidly work from the outdoor as well. This notion of biophilia, so the kind of the key impacts on our well-being, our physical and emotional well-being, when we are surrounded by plant life, has continued to grow. So this is the Jules headquarters in Amsterdam, designed by Space Encounters, including lush greenery, you know, really benefiting from that nature connection. And giving employees access to working gardens or even farms, in extreme examples, offering that deeper immersion to nature. This is the architectural office of Field and Fowles. They're an architecture practice, and they base themselves in the centre of Waterloo, but also constructed a sort of small community farm within the site, and, you know, really encourage their staff to get involved in volunteering on that community farm. The next idea within the Nourishing Workplace is the importance of tactility and sensory sensibility. This is obviously something controversial at the moment, because you know, a sense of touch is something that we're being heavily discouraged to do. And in fact, one of the ideas that was brought up in one of our focus groups in the last couple of weeks was the rise of contactless technology. So whether that's, you know, swipe access, for examples, to spaces, or switching lights on and off through gesture. However, you know, we really feel that there is concern if we move towards this completely contactless office, because we really need to be able to, you know, reconnect with our basic sense of humanity, and tactility and touch really, you know, plays an important role of that in that. So this was another quote from an article written by Michelle Gundogan. She said, "We must be wary of reverting to sterility in reaction to the threat of disease. The importance of being surrounded by objects, furnishings, finishes and materials that have personal meaning brings its own boost to well-being." So, you know, when it is indeed safe to get back to, you know, greater sense of tactility, I think it's important that we don't, you know, automatically plump for this wipe down sense of sterility in terms of our material choices, because we were really starting to uncover and realise the importance of haptic and sensorial material qualities in the workplace environment. So one such example is the Kinfolk headquarters in Copenhagen by Norm Architects, using lots of natural materials, and again materials that were chosen for their haptic qualities. So it's not only tactility, but there's also a key function in sound absorption to create healthy auditory environments. And so where sort of sound deadening features have been used for function, they're now being sort of aesthetically incorporated into some beautiful results. This is the Bow acoustic panel designed by Foremost with Love, inspired by origami techniques, and it's made from 100% bio-based fir and pine with wheat bran and potato starch. So they're really beautiful to look at, these panels, and they're environmentally sound and also acoustically effective, and have that sense of sort of tactility. And then finally, optimize well-being. So I've already mentioned the role of technology perhaps in helping us to be, you know, more contactless where appropriate. And how can technology also, you know, and material experimentation provide a more human-centered, responsive, adaptive environment? So again, looking at the importance of our natural cycles, how you know, we can consider lighting more in a more deep way to synthesize perhaps our circadian rhythms, so which are missing often with offices that are flooded with flat natural light, or indeed surfaces that can play with a light interaction or lend a sense of wonder and immersion. to give that sense of play, which can be done in high-tech or indeed very low-tech ways. So this is an example. This is the ambience office, designed by Studio Y, which incorporates diachromic glass for this sort of kaleidoscopic effect, which gives different colour variations as natural light changes throughout the day. So it gives this really playful effect, and it's a quite poetic sort of small installation. So yeah, the Nourishing Workplace. And this was a really, key topic that emerged within our focus group conversations. And one of the key points that was raised by one of the architects that was contributing was actually, that potentially the office becomes almost like a medical instrument. And how do we really make sure that we are designing for physical and mental well-being, and perhaps do health professionals even need to be incorporated into the research and design development stages? So some of the ideas we've explored are how can we connect and sort of rewild the workplace to connect with nature? How can we make spaces of privacy and calm that allow sort of retreat and recharging, particularly through the sense of tactility? And then finally, how can technology help to supplement our natural rhythms and create a sense of poetic wonder in the workplace? So thank you so much for your time today. I hope you've enjoyed some of the visuals that we've displayed, and the publication is available for download on the Great Indoors website. And I think now we've probably got a few minutes left, and I'd be really happy to take any of your questions. I'm just going to stop sharing. So I think Rob and Ariana are on hand to take some questions, if anybody has any.
Caroline, so far we don't have any questions yet.
Okay, that's fine.
Maybe it's because of this overwhelming information that they had.
I'm hoping everybody's just been absorbing and enjoying the visuals in their own home. But yeah, if anybody does indeed have any questions or indeed comments. Oh, there is something in the chat. Let me see. Okay, oh great, that's nice.
Just that it's
Oh, there's a question. What were the 5 countries of the research? So in total for the Rethinking Workplace initiative, there's 14 countries, and the research from all 14 has now come back. So that will be, as I understand, continually updated, and a series of mini reports will be published through the Great Indoors website. But the 5 key insights that I started with were gathered from 5 countries, which were the Netherlands, the USA, Australia, China, and the UK.
That seems to be sufficient.
Excellent. Thank you, Celine. Oh, it's nice to see that there is actually people out there, because it's such a passive format. I'm so used to there being an audience, and you can have a sense of interaction.
Well, it was extremely interesting. For me, it was so much information that I will definitely be in the rerun next week, so that I can get it again. So everyone, just thanks and great presentations there. But so for everyone, there will be a rerun next week on the 21st of July. So hopefully you will, if you want to hear it again. But as we already said, it's also recorded, and we will share a recording, and the presentation is also going to be shared with you. So, well, after this webinar next week, we will have a short break, a holiday break, as we probably all have. And then we will be back in September, and I really hope to see you all again in September. Caroline again, thank you very much for this very useful presentation. And we'll talk probably next week again. For the rest, I want to wish everyone a very nice holiday, and hope to see you after the summer holidays. Take care, and bye.
Thank you.